My name is Alitha Martinez, and today I'm going to draw Namor, my favorite Marvel character. Now, before we begin, I have to walk you through the human mask. First thing I'm going to do now is draw a grid. This is for all our artists at home, our budding artists. Who would like to know how to draw the human mask? Now, I'm going to draw this grid by one, meaning 1 inch by 1 inch square, or 2 inches in total. Then we're going to trim it. This is drawing the human head by numbers. Forgive me for flipping my paper around, but I'm a flipper when I draw. So this square I've created is 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch, 2 inches in total. So 2 inches, 2 inches. On each side, I'm going to take off 3/4 of an inch. We're going to use this for a guide. Now we're going to lightly sketch in a circle. I hope this isn't too light, but we're going to try to confine our circle within our head guide. I'm going to turn this circle into an egg, being very mindful of our center lines. We're going to need those later. This is where our head starts. So we have an egg that we have now divided in half because of the little grid that we've made in the beginning. So now that we have this egg, we're going to use the center line. This is our eye line. The lower portion, we will divide in half again. It's our nose line. The lower portion in half one more time. It's our mouth line. Eyes, nose, mouth. Now, between the eye line and the nose line, we replace the ears. Now we have to decide whether this is a male or female. If it's a female, we would keep the jaw round. But because we're drawing a male, we want a nice square jawline. Notice we're trying to keep our head symmetrical. Even though in nature I know we're really not symmetrical perfectly, but we're going to try to keep it that way because comics. So here we are. We've gotten this far. And this is our very basic sketch. Now, we're drawing a male. Again, we want to keep his neck nice and wide, dropping it down from behind the ears. I will show you for women, but for right now, we need to draw 5 eyes across our center line. Why? Because there are typically 5 eyes could fit across our face. So we want to draw 5 eyes of equal size across the center line. Adjust as necessary. Why do we need all 5 eyes right now when we only need eye 2 and 4? Because we're going to use the rest as measurements. If we were actually drawing a woman, we would keep this draw very rounded and drop our neck from between eyes 1 and 2 and 4 and 5. But males, nice strong neckline. Again, I don't want to draw too dark. This way I won't have a lot of erasing to do. So now we want to put the nose on. Usually my bias is from the other side. But for this purpose, I'm going to bring down my nose from the left side toward the nose line. And put on some little indications of nostrils. That little cleft between our nose and lip, upper lip, and the face. I'm going to slightly darken in our eyes, but not very much. Brow is to go up over the orbital socket and in between, directly between the eye 1 and 2, center line. But you say, wait a minute, Alitha, this does not look like Namor. No, this is our human mask by the numbers. We can recognize our human mask, and we're very, very good at it. Maybe too good if we can find it on a slice of toast bread. I'm going to swap out my pencils so I can get a slightly darker one. And now I'm going to actually check my math in a minute. But first, I've got to admit something to you. I have done you the same disservice that has been done to every artist since the Renaissance, since they started to teach the human mask. Why? Why, you say? Because we know this is not Namor's true head shape, right? But this is the head shape we are commonly taught. We recognize the skull, when in fact there are 3 types of human skulls. Science says we have the Caucasianoid skull, the Negroid, and the Mongoloid skull. But this is the skull we recognize, and this is the skull we are taught to draw. But if we have to draw a person of Asian descent or a person of African descent, we are still trying to draw them off of the Caucasianoid skull, when in fact we should be changing the shape of the skull. So let's visit some of these characteristics as we change Namor's skull to suit, because we all know he has very high cheekbones, right? And a very long sort of face. So these cheekbones have to be a little bit wider here. And he has a long, narrow face. Okay, maybe drop down a little bit below our center line. We want to keep his jaw nice and strong, heroic jaw. But we know he has that high Roman nose. We'll have our center line come in, build our nose. And those eyes. Let's talk about the eyes. I would say that Namor has hooded eyes, in opposed to the eye that an Asian person would have. The difference is being this medial epicanthic fold drops down over this canuncle in the corner of the eye on the Asian eye. So it covers the canuncle, pointing down towards the bridge of the nose, while the N comes up towards the brow. This little observation is often what makes it very difficult to draw Asians, because we don't recognize this little flap of skin that is covering the corner of the eye. Now in Namor's case, we can see this little corner of his eye most of the time. And yet it's very pulled, very almond shaped. Let me just get it a little further along. Because we can still see the corner of the eye clearly, this is a hooded eye. See the difference? So let's go back to old Namor here. We want to draw a nice almond-shaped eye. But he has that super high brow, right? Bring it up. But still keeping our math in place, ending it between the first eye and the fifth eye. So it actually comes off the corner of the third eye, crossing up over and arching nice and high. So we have these very high cheekbones. This long, narrow face. But wait a minute, our skull, still a little broad at the top, right? Bring it in just a little bit. We need this middle line. So let me go back to what I said about the three types of human skull. We've changed him from our direct Caucasianoid skull, putting in features from the other two types of skulls. Let's talk a little bit about what these other two types of skulls have in common with Namor. When you're drawing the Mongoloid skull, now called the Asianoid skull, it's shorter, broader, flatter skull, very moon face with wide cheekbones, a round jawline, a small little nostril opening, very much like Namor. A less pronounced nasal bridge. Ooh, sounds very familiar. And the nasal opening is flared at the bottom. When we're talking about the Negroid skull, again, this one comes in, tapers in a little bit at the brow, very strong brow. The orbital sockets are rectangular and spaced a little further apart. Thus, it might seem as if the eyes are further apart, but you will draw the same way, using the same mathematics for our human skull. There's a more forward slope from the forehead to the chin, very much the way we draw superheroes. So science holds this truth for us, that there are only three types of human skulls. And I said, but wait, Alitha, what does that mean? And who made these decisions? I'm going to tell you. How did science arrive at this? We can blame the Nazis. They went all over the world measuring the human skull, and they decided long ago that these are the three types. So what if you come from a Hispanic background like I do, or you come from an Indian background? Well, guess what? They said our skulls are an amalgam of the other skulls. We don't have a recognized skull yet. So while they were able to change the name here from the Negroid to the Africanoid, and from the Mongoloid to the Asianoid, science has yet to recognize any skull type for the majority of the people on the planet. I know it is a crime. So let's get back one more time to Namor. Knowing what we know now, I know you can't take it back. You can't unsee it. I'm going to do a little bit of structure on his ears. But before we get too far away here, do you know you can check your math? We tend to have a bias, meaning we draw skewed to one side. Remember I said that we draw things very symmetrical, but they're not. If you ever want to check your personal bias, be prepared. I hope you're sitting down. If you're an artist, flip it over. shine a light source through it, and you'll be able to see which side you lean toward, and you'll be able to make the corrections. So as you could see, I have a little bit of a lean this way, so I'm going to straighten it out. I'm sorry if it's a little hard to see through. I tend to pull all my sketches through a light box because I go straight to inks. I don't bother with the penciling stage like I'm doing right now. So while I go through here, pull a cleaner version of Namor through. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me anything. Especially if you need me to repeat something here. Keeping that strong chin, nice strong jaw, long face, ears, but ears are rounded, right? We know he has pointy ears. Again, we're making modifications to our human mask. You have to know the mask in order to modify it. So there we go, our face from the mask, much stronger than it was before. Now we're looking more like Namor. About halfway down, the top of the skull that we left undone. Let's sketch in a little hairline, the center line. Oh, I have my first question. Who is your favorite Marvel character to draw? And who is the hardest character to draw? You know what? When you break your artwork down to the math like this, you'll find that you'll be able to draw just about anything because you're going back to basics every single time. When they have very difficult costumes, that becomes another issue. My favorite, I have a favorite character. Namor is my favorite, although I haven't got to draw him very much. But I think my overall favorite character that I've only drawn once was Thor. And I must admit, Moon Girl was a lot of fun. I learned a lot drawing Moon Girl. It's like, why? Because most of that you have to brush. I had to learn different techniques. I had to pick up different styles. Here today, I won't be doing very much brush. That's not coming from, I won't be dipping my good old fashioned brush. I will be using a disposable one because I want to work as quickly as possible and keep things as dry as possible. Sometimes when I use ink, I can get very heavy handed and it can get very wet. So you can see, this is our initial head. To the other side. Make any corrections. So now with this sketch, I'm ready to ink. I have another question. Who are your favorite artists? Now, you know, I'm going to have to tell you a story. I'm going to have to go way, way back to when I was a kid, first getting into the love of comics, drawing on my own, having just returned to this country. I didn't know that things like this existed. They didn't have them in Curacao. But coming here to America, you're turning on the TV. Guess what? You see that X-Men cartoon. There was Robotech. There were so many things to be able to see and experience. And I said, and there's comic books. So I had to walk past an alligator 2 miles to go up to the 7-Eleven to be able to buy a Marvel comic book that they only had sporadically. My first one seeing were like John Buscema. Loved the Conan stuff. That was my favorite. I could read it endlessly. Now I'm going to draw these eyes in blue. I didn't draw them before because I want to show you a little trick about drawing eyes. Because they're right here, lightly sketched in blue, while they're looking forward, they're kind of open because I'm still using the human math. There's no acting in his face. There's no life in his face yet. We're going to add those things as we move along. Again, I'm going to do the horrible error. I know there's some comic book artists rolling over in their graves going, are you really going to ink that with microns? To an extent. But I won't finish him in microns, don't worry. I got the pointed ears on this side. Forgive me, I'm going to have to rev my pencil sharpener. Old-fashioned wood pencils. Have another question. Have you done any comic book work with Namor? Yes. In Black Panther, World of Wakanda, I got to draw a flashback scene of him drowning the city. That's right. I didn't go on a little bit about myself because believe me, I hate talking about myself so much. I much rather prefer to draw. I'm one of those journeyman artists that just sit home and draw. I don't really like having to go out very much. But don't think that this time of Corona has been good. Oh no, I'm used to having a more flexible schedule and more time outside. This is definitely adding extra hours to my day. But I started my career with Marvel. My first book was Iron Man. From there, I went on to X-Men Black Sun. And like other artists, just roamed around doing other types of books, other type of work. Here, I'm going to fix my little bias before I move on. Okay, someone asked, what did I use to help draw the human body? To help learn to draw the human body, I assume I'm being asked. You know, you're skipping ahead. We're going to get to that. Let me finish this little head and I will be certain to go through the drawing of the human body because I think people have said it over and over in other tutorials how to draw 8-headed human figure. Then I have to go to another story. When I was a kid, I realized very quickly that I wasn't going to learn how to draw what I wanted to learn to draw in school. Interest of comic books in Florida, you know, just not that high. So my senior year of school, confessing to a very naughty thing, I spent 36 days in the public library picking up books on anatomy, learning to draw the human figure. And it's something that you never stop learning. No one's ever drawn the perfect circle. In that same way, you will continue to perfect your drawing of the human figure. Learning the math does make it a lot easier, though. So another question, are there any Marvel characters that you look forward to drawing or would love to draw in the future? Didn't you hear me? Of course, Namor. It's all about Namor. Do you hear me? I was one of those people that didn't like to talk about the things you wanted to draw because it's like you're jinxing yourself. But now it's like, oh, why not? They gave him a book again. Why not? But in all seriousness and all fairness, I like to draw anything. I like to draw a challenge. It's what I haven't drawn yet, which very few characters that I have not drawn. That's the real challenge, considering when you're working on X-Men, you draw a whole range of characters. When you're working, Wolverine is one of my favorite characters to draw. Do you see a trend here? I kind of like solo male heroes. Quite frankly, that's what I started drawing. It's only been in recent time that I've been getting to draw ladies in books. That is not how I started. So remember I told you a little bit about his eyes being super wide open? As I inked them, I relaxed them a bit. Put a little life in his face. Because when you're drawing the human mask, it is just to the numbers. And anyone can do it, by the way. It's not a magic trick. It's just this little grid. It is the measurements, dividing that entire egg shape in half, placing the eyes, 5 eyes across the human skull, the nose, and the mouth. Anyone can do this. It takes practice to learn how to define these characters, to perfect your art, which you will never do. And you know what? I kind of thank the Lord for that, because who wants to be perfect at what you do? You want to learn something every day, learn to the end. What would be the point if you didn't? So, back to my confession. After I sat in the library learning how to draw the human figure, I did get caught. I was returned to my school. And when they asked me, Alitha, why? Why did you skip all this school? What could I say? Except I wanted to learn to draw. Now, this is when ugly truths come in, because back then, I've been drawing comics a long time, 21 years of this. And when I started, women didn't draw comic books. Yeah, I was told that. Not only was I told that, I was kind of shown that. It was a thing, it was normal. And you know what my answer to that whole thing was? We'll see. So, just like in a rock video, sorry, gonna rotate my paper again. I came to New York with a duffel bag and a guitar and a dream. I wanted to draw comics. Oh, it didn't happen just that fast. No way, no way, no how. But New York is where Marvel was, and the other one we shall not name. Doesn't my Namor look happy? He tends not to look so happy, right? Whip around these cheekbones, around the chin. Hit that widow's peak a little bit. Back to the hairline. And now we're going to take out the brush. I know. Remember, Namor had that hair that didn't move? It was like perfectly still, even when he was underwater, and it was shaped closer to the shape of his skull underneath. Yeah, we could go ahead and draw that hair in. It's still there, it still exists. But I always thought, he's underwater. Why doesn't his hair move? Is his hair closer to like shark skin or something? So we're going to draw his hair with some movement. And I'm going to use a little bit of a dry brush technique. I'm barely touching. Oh, someone's asked a mean question here. As I noticed that you're very detailed and love it. Really? Is that so? Okay. Are your deadlines super strict? Yes! Oh my goodness. I can't even begin to tell you. Don't get me confessing. Oh goodness. Yes, unfortunately, we don't normally get this whole lot of time. That's why, like I said, I don't usually pencil. I would do a blue line sketch as tight as possible underneath this. I would not put any graphite to the page at all whatsoever, not one single line of it, and I would just ink directly on top of it. And we have another question. Do you typically follow the standard one page per day pace that artists talk about? I'm going to take a moment of silence here and I'm going to look over at this invisible person standing on the side of me. No, I wish I could draw just to a page a day. I really, really do. I tend to draw a little bit more than that. Sometimes two, sometimes 3 pages a day, full pencil, full ink, meaning it comes out in ink. Yeah, that's a lot and it's not normal and it burns me. It really, really does. But I'm going to tell you a little dirty secret here. When you are among the first of something, you've got to be fast. You've got to be better than average. You've got to be exceptional because people, even to this day, will question, can she draw something? Is she capable of drawing something? And everyone knows that deadlines are getting much tighter. You know, people want their books. That's great. But at the same time, oh goodness, that page a day, we just don't get. It's just not going to happen. Now, if I get a whole lot of time on a book, oh goodness, I will throw in so much detail. I will do backgrounds. There'll be the kitchen sink in there. It like a Where's Waldo. Looks like a painting. I'm going to let this dry for just a second because as soon as I touch it, I'm going to have ink under my nails. Look at my hands already. Oh my goodness. I'm going to have so much ink all over myself by the time I'm done with this. It's okay. We like him. But no, I don't like him. Why don't I like him? Well, there's not much to his face, not much detail, not much, you know. I like shadows. I like drama, and people are afraid of the shadows and the drama. Why are we so afraid of them? Because we don't want to make our art look weird or wonky, and much less to plunge someone into such deep, deep shadow. Well, guess what we're going to do? I know I get quiet when I'm drawing. I feel it makes my hand shake. I'm going to follow the contours of his face and use it to up the drama a little bit. I'm going to have to let this piece dry. But while it's drying, I'm going to show you something else. inside the ear, come back out, do the other one, again. Don't worry, we're going to tighten this all up. Someone says, I have a big problem with the ink all over me, and when I draw. Any tips on not smear the ink, so not to smear the ink so much? Yeah, that's why I tend to spin my page and I work from one end to the other. I also will work on multiple pages, meaning that if I get a lot of ink, since there's no pencil underneath, and that means there's going to be a lot of ink on my page, right? I'm going to put that page aside and let it dry, and then go work on another page. You know, because he's underwater, I feel he just needs a little bit of gray tone. He really does. He's calling to me saying, Alitha, put gray wash on me. Don't just leave me like this. Because there's no color. And again, I would take out the brushes for this. Because my ink is wet, I can actually use it to move it very much like watercoloring. Someone asked, have you ever drawn the other Atlanteans as well, like Namorita or Ne? Yes, Namorita once. It was like forever ago. What was I drawing? It was a crossover book. I think it was within Iron Man when they were first taking those little pills. Somebody was, you know, of course, inventing that whole pill thing. And you take the pill and you get the power of that particular person. At this point, it's more about who I have not drawn yet. And within Marvel, I think I've got them all. Ooh, I'm going to try so hard not to touch him and smear his ink all over the place. But again, working from one side that's drawing to the other side. It depends on the ink I'm using. This is why today I'm not taking out the traditional ink and I'm relying a lot more on markers because this paper I'm drawing on is a two-ply Bristol, quite similar to the Marvel One Pass. And it can take a little while to dry if you put a lot of ink on it. So I'm going to give you a little tip here. Okay, I'm going to get to the questions in a moment, but first let me give you a little tip here. So, you look at Namor, you know we light our eyes. But when a character is looking dead at you, you stare back. Why? It's engaging your predatory instinct. When an animal is staring at you, you will stare at that animal. So it's a trick to get people to look at your work, to do that. Now I'm actually going to take him a little bit further into dark. So I could have stopped at the one level, but you know what? If you're underwater and you're going to get dramatic, you might as well get really dramatic. So you see what I mean? I plunged that eye just a little further into black. Blacks add mood, adds character. And people are a little afraid to use it because they're like, I don't want to ruin my perfect drawing. Oh my God, why? Why did I put so much black on the page? No such thing as a perfect drawing, and there's no reason not to hit it again. Because every time you redraw something, you learn something else about art, about doing this process. So we know Namor is a bad guy sometimes. He's always been my favorite. I love that his first appearance, he hopped out of the water in his birthday suit to terrorize the people on the land. What is not to love about Namor then, huh? So as you can see, drama. So much fun. So I have another question here. Which parts of a character do you find most difficult to shade? You know what? This is a good time while old Namor here is drying a little bit before I put acrylic. And another fun tip, when you're inking like this and you want to add white, like say you want to add more white to it, save that to last. Do not go in now and touch it with white. It's wet. It's going to turn to a gray wash. It's not going to look right. Let me touch it up so he looks really organic. Don't be afraid of the brush, my friends. Pick it up. Make it your friend. In fact, I'm going to walk you through a very, very, very brief exercise to help you do so. If you would like to practice along and you happen to have one of these disposable pens, fine. If not, we can hit this in pencil. This is called my bruise circles. I want you to draw 9 ugly circles. They don't have to look good. They don't have to sit there, oh my goodness, let me sketch this out, make this thing perfectly round. Oh, look delicious. No, make them look like bruised fruit. Try to swing them in exactly one go. Let me answer just one more question. Let's see. It's like, which part of a character? We're doing that now. How much context are you given on what to draw for each page? Do you get an outline or just writing descriptions of the scene? It depends. Most of the time, I'm lucky enough to have gotten full scripts, meaning they'll even have what the character is saying, which helps me decide on how they should act. Because, again, so many questions to answer, it's making me hop around a bit because we know this is a visual medium, and we have to decide who is doing what, where are they doing it, when, and the other thing is why. This is my responsibility, the visual part. And I will speak this language of storytelling by drawing who, introducing you to the character in an opera shop, meaning how my page is laid out according to the script. What are they doing? Are they just walking down the street? Are they engaged in a big, big battle? Where are they? Meaning I have to give you an establishing shot. I have to show you the city. I have to show you where we are. Hopefully we're not fighting in space or in the desert or in a snowstorm. We're somewhere, and I have to create an establishing shot. When? I have to give you a sense of presence, a grounding. But you know, the why is something I might never know. Just like you, the beloved reader, you might never know why they're doing what they're doing. This why is the writer's part. So your part is the artist, and this is the writer to answer the why. This is the part that they only know, and this is the part that I only know. So this is what I handle. Everything in between is a common language that we're speaking. And if we're speaking this language well, just like the human mask, just like anything else we know how to do, just like when you read it, you notice something is missing. If I don't give you an establishing shot, if I don't answer the who, or if I do it 2 or 3 pages later, you're going to go, what? What was that about? What are they doing? Are they just sitting in the chair staring at you? Where are they? Have you ever looked at that? You've seen a book and you love all the characters and they're beautiful and they're really starting to move, but then you realize a couple pages in, I don't know where we are. I don't even know why we're doing this. When, meaning it's not grounded. And the why, well, that's why we buy the next issue. Hopefully, we'll find out why. So let's get back to this little lesson because you know, time is flying on us and I have to draw a whole body for you. So, my beloved artists, those who want to try, and I would suggest anyone try. I wish we had time to go over the human mask once again because I tell you, because we're so good at recognizing it, anyone can draw it. So we're going to decide on some light sources here. Which side is light coming in on? And this will answer a question that I did not forget or skip. So back to our ugly little circles. They all look bruised and beat up. I think they've been in a fight. We're going to draw 3 arrows over their heads. We only need 9 of them. Remember, this one was just, I was showing you, please, please don't be ginger with them. Now, on our first, first, let me give you, and put them on a little pedestal. Second thing you do, put them all on a little tiny, tiny pedestal. Go back to our first row, second row, third row. Since our light is coming in from the right, it's darkening this side of our circle, casting a shadow underneath on our little pedestal. Overhead, maybe the bottom of our circle is getting darkened, and definitely the shadow is in the middle. Opposite side, coming in from the left, our shadow is on the right. And then, here it is, falling beneath our pedestal. Are we going to hear the sharpener one more time? Now, on our second one, remember when we used to try to draw neckties when we had to draw family portraits in school? So we drew this funny looking little necktie. About the middle of each bruised little circle on your second row, draw a little necktie. It is just a necktie. I know you're thinking, wait a minute, aren't you tricking me into drawing noses? No, it's a necktie. I don't know what you're talking about. Cut off the bottom of each necktie here. Like we're making stripes, but you're only going to do one stripe. Again, we're going to follow our light source. So, wait, I've got a necktie here. And we're going to imagine that it's a 3D kind of shape. And it's casting a shadow. Still coming in this time from our right. So where's our shadow going? Oh, down our right side. Also going down the right side of our necktie. Shadow here. Well, if it's a 3D shape, maybe on each side of the top of our necktie here. And at the bottom. And of course, the bottom of our circle, right? And our third, wait, here we go again. By now, it's like, wait, I kind of know this. Coming from the right. And you know we definitely don't need the top part of our necktie. Oh, wait, did I just trick you into drawing a nose? Yes, and I'm going to do it again. Let's do it one more time. Draw another necktie. And it can be ugly. Look at these hideous ties I've drawn. But this time, at the bottom of my little necktie, touching the tip, I'm going to draw two equal signs. Like, So you drew a little necktie, you cut the tip off of it, and you drew two equal signs touching it. And here, you're going to draw something that I know it looks like eyes. And yes, oh my goodness, they are eyes. But for our purposes, we're just going to call them little circles because we don't want to be intimidated by this at all. We just want to get to it. And once again, we're going to follow the direction of our light sources here. Go down. Oops. Sorry. Side of our necktie, color in the bottom. It's touching our, oh wait, that looks like an upper lip. Cast the shadow. Come around the outside. Go across the top and touch the side of our shadow. Go ahead. Bring it down underneath. The other side. There's our eye. Give it a little bit of shape. Cut off the top of it. A little bit off the side of our necktie. You shaded ahead. Do it again. The bottom touches the top lip. Coming in the middle. Shade under the chin. Cross the brow. Cut off top. And on the side. Oh, look again. More faces. Here. Moving from our left. Our necktie. Touch our top lip. A little bit under the bottom. Down our other side, cross the brow to our side. The other brow. Practice this. Doesn't have to be neat, but what you're doing is building confidence in your ability to lay down basic shadows on our human mask. As you try different ones, you'll notice you can do down the middle, this other type of lighting. You try different light sources. But most of all, I want you to get tired of doing it with a pencil. If you've tried this, you've done many, many strokes. And you go, there's got to be an easier way. Well, there is. You can do the same thing in ink. This turns into just a swipe of your ink pen. So when you're doing a little bruised circle, notice I hold my tip, basically, trying to get pretty close to 90 degrees here for me. 45 to 90, just so I can make a thinner line. I tilt it more to use broader side of my brush. So remember, up and very light. That is the one thing about using disposables. You have to keep squeezing them, get the ink flowing. But again, very light. Barely touch your paper. Get it out. Ink coming in. Let me squeeze some ink through. Wasn't that a lot faster? Here's another circle. Remember our old necktie? I'm going to go ahead and put the equal sign here too. across the brow where our eye is. So as I sat here shading and coloring, I was able to do it in just a few strokes with the pen. Try with the pen. Try to build your confidence here because you're not losing anything doing this. You didn't touch this little fancy face doing it. And remember, this is not a little fancy face. This was just that basic little math thrown down for you in a couple moments. You can do it too. And now that he's mostly dry, and if I was going to scan this and ink it, darken it in the computer, I mean, because a big portion of my job now is actually doing a lot of computer work. I'm traditional. I like to draw at my desk just like this because I like that brush in my hand. But I must say that after I've done this, I have to go to my computer, scan this in, clean it up. Meaning I've got to get rid of the blue. I've got to get rid of all the little smudges. I've got to be super, super careful that I'm scanning in grayscale because I put gray all over him because that was smart to do right here, right? And then I have to put it into a template and send it off to my inker, to my editor, sorry. But you say what I actually said what I am doing. You can connect this little shadow a little bit more drama. I'm going to have to go to my other fallback of a piece of paper under my hand because, yeah, you'll smear ink if you're not careful, see? But once again, he's far enough away from me, I don't have to worry about touching him. I just want to punch up a couple of these little lines. You know, when I started, I was just like a pure penciler, meaning all I did was pencil. And I did ink some other projects that I wasn't given credit for because I was a ghost. When I very, very first started, I technically count my career as a comic book artist from the time I got Iron Man. Before that, I was learning and ghosting. So I did not get credit on a lot of the books I worked on. My first credit was the run on Black Panther with Mark Texiera. So again, voila, did a little tiny head for you there. And now we're going to move on to the full body. And I know I had a full body question. Got to get out another sheet of paper. And take a minute to clean off my hand. So, like I said, I normally just pull blue through a piece of Bristol. Here is my sketch. It's pretty tight, he's pretty done, and this costume is a beast to draw. I tell you. Who came up with this costume? Why? Why? I like the old Speedos. But before I get to going right to the ink on that, let's talk about this figure. Just like the 8-headed figure, he measures the same, but he's in perspective, meaning he is not dead on to your eye. He's centered, but he's looking down at you, so you know that you are below him. You are at a worm's eye. You're looking up at him. If we're drawing our 8-headed figure, I did a little sketch here. Let me flip it for you. The size of the head dictates the length of the body. I remember when I first read the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, they were doing an 8.5 figure. 8.5 heads for the human figure. They were adding a little bit more to the shin to make them a little longer and dropping our feet below the 8. I find the 8 is a little bit easier to measure. Remember that center line that we used before? Oh, you need it here. And while, yes, using all parts of 8 heads, using this whole center line, we're not drawing directly to every line. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry, this is 8. 4, 4. So 4 heads top. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. I had it right the first time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There. 4 heads top. 4 heads bottom. Mark it. Divide it right down the middle. Now our heroes tend to be 1 head in length across each shoulder. But we don't want to draw the neck way up here. No, we have to drop it a little bit beneath our first line. Create our barrel of the chest. Again, dividing it down the middle. Our pelvis. Let's divide out this last head. Put our heels on that line. Our toes a little forward the line. A little space because our trapezius muscles allows our shoulders to drop a little bit. Right here, the pectoral muscle should be head in length. Now I'm just going to go through this like super quick. You know, yes, 1 head in length across his little tiny narrow waist. But you know, it's just a naturally tiny waist, right? Block out our big shapes. Once again, I want to talk to you about these arms. We know that the arms are about 3 heads long. The wrists fall to about the 4th line. Our hands fall halfway through our thighs. But on a nice little average man, as if we're going to draw him for an average man right now, down this side of his body, there are certain muscle groups that are not as large as would say on a muscular superhero. Everything measures the same, but you're able to put your arms down closer to your side. They're not resting on this big muscle of your back, which helps turn this arm out, giving it a much more dramatic look. It's little things like that, just little details that will help you build a stronger looking figure. So let's talk about some of these muscles and what we need, because I'm going to use them on Namor, but in perspective. Here, the pit of the neck, extremely important. Why? Because coming from our pit of the neck, crossing our chest on each side, that is where you place your nipple. Come from our pit of the neck again. We know heroes have nice wide necks. Men, we draw them the same, drop down from behind the ear. And we want to go from the pit of the neck a little bit wider than our neck, or as wide as our neck, normal guy size, a little wider than our neck, hero size, down the top of the groin. Our belly button falls on line 3, 3 above the navel, 1 group below, That's the division of your abdominal wall. Yes, there are 5 packs, 8 packs. The more muscular you get, the more you have, but this is standard for us. And where would those divisions go? Technically, you get a little bit more here, but that is not usual. We try to measure 2, 3 top, navel, 1 large group at the bottom. But you're like, wait, the bane of every artist's existence is having to draw these little muscles along the side, right? You're like, where do they go? What are they even? They look like child hands gripping a figure, right? From behind. Like, is he carrying a kid on his back? No, that's the serratus muscles. And they're a lovely little line of muscles that we have that follow our external oblique, wrapping around. So there's about 1, 2, 3. This fourth line is external oblique. That's the side for our figure. So draw 3 little lines coming down from the top, and each one intersect the other way. And they touch the end here. Remember, if you have any questions, shoot them our way. If you're trying to draw along, well, luckily this is saved, and you can practice on your own. But take a look on our skinnier man. The muscle is not as developed. We're not going to make it as wide as we did. And we're also not going to make it as defined. We can make it extremely defined. On this side, dehydrated skin and clenched muscle so that you could see every groupie. But if you relax, like on the other side, you're not going to see as much. And you're going to see the rib cage. You're not going to have that cage of muscles, the serratus muscles, holding so tight that it looks like a child gripping his back. You're also going to have arms that rest closer to the side of the body. Again, the small part, where we put the elbows, smallest part of our waist. So here, you can have a nice round deltoid, not as developed, the arm. And fun fact, we always think of the bicep here. Bicep and tricep is 2. No, there's a little muscle in between called the brachialis. It's right down the middle there. But here, it won't be as pronounced on our skinnier guy. So again, we split the figure. Down. When we reach this line that I made here at 8, notice inside ankle is higher than the outside ankle bone. I rest the heel on line 8 and then push the toes forward. Because we're kind of drawing a figure, 3D is not flat down on our page. So the heels go to line 8, so go to line 8, the bottom, and then the toes come out. More muscular guy. I'm not going to get these little cute little skinny thighs. We're going to get some nice big thick quadriceps. The knees. Remember that necktie I showed you before? Make a little short bow tie for the knees. Calf. Just like ankle. Higher on the inside. Lower on the outside. Neck nice and wide. Trapezius looking very much like a coat hanger. Skinnier guy side, a little more gentle. So while he's developed, pretty firm looking, he is nowhere near our heroic proportion size. So let us move on to drawing Namor. I've already sort of started him here because it's going to take me a little while to get through him. And like I said, I want to put him down in blue line. And that costume is a mean thing. Why? So again, what I mostly need is just his outline here. Just like before, I'm going to hit as much as possible in ink. So here we have the outline of his body. Notice his ab wall is clenched. How do we know it's clenched? Not only do we see this little triangle in between, we're showing how tight the muscles are bunched together. Serratus muscles falling alongside. Wrap of our external oblique. But instead of wrapping on the outside, because we're looking up at his figure, you see the rib cage fully through. Now I'm going to show you a trick. When you have to ink something, we know most of this costume is black, but it could be intimidating to have to hit all of this black. Where do I put it? I have to decide on my light source. Where's this light coming in from? What do I do? Don't panic. Do you see this faint outline of his figure? We're actually going to use that as the basis for our blacks. We're going to fill in most of this in black, so that when we're putting on these blacks, when we're going in with our brush and just hitting all these shapes, you're going to plunge all of this into dark. If you had to cast a light from this side, remember our bruised little circles? And in fact, we are going to cast a light here, but we're also going to cast a secondary light source so that all of our cross hatching along our muscles, catching the shadow just like on our bruised circle, coming in from the left, throw it on the right. So again, mystery solved. Remember what I said about the pit of the neck? That is what I use to measure the ab wall. He's a bigger guy, although I've seen him draw that more slimmer build of a swimmer, which is also fine. But then remember, we would go for the smaller. We would not have these muscles quite as prominent. But again, from the pit of the neck across, the top of our external oblique, that's where you're going to put the nipples. Again, I'm going to turn on my light box. The sketch underneath. We know on one side he's got like a little fishnet thing going on now. I don't know how I feel about the fishnets. I think I like the Speedos better. And here too. Now I know when you're drawing things like this, you're going, oh my goodness, which side should I put them? Should they be more like smiles, going in this direction? That was decided from your center line. If we are looking up, then all of these things are going to be as if we're below looking up. Now I'm going to start the inking. I have multiples of each utensil I use to draw with, every instrument. Why? Because I lose things. Oh my goodness, it's so terrible. I don't know, I always start at the ears. Do you remember the modifications we had to make in order to draw his face? They hold here too. Want the nice high cheekbones, the narrow nostrils. So someone asks, who are your biggest influences for style? Let me tell you something about style. I tend not to have a set one. I think that's why I'm not noticed a lot, because I don't have a set style. So I'm able to draw a book like Moon Girl, and then draw something like Namor, and then draw something like Black Panther. I can hop around. I can draw something as serious as Excalibur, that X-Men book. I love that so much because I got to draw the little baby and redesign Captain Britain. So as far as style is concerned, there's just too many. There's so many artists out there that I like to read their work, and yet I'm all about the story. I want to know why things are happening, and I think less and less they're answering that question for me. So they're leaving me going, why did this happen in a book? Whose fault is this? It's someone's fault. And I guess I'll never know. So I'm going to speed things up here a little bit, because time sure does fly when you're having fun. Oh, what writers do you like working with first? You know, every time you get a script, it's like it's so brand new. I can't even explain to you how every script is so very, very different. Some scripts I get them and I have to go lay down. I literally start reading and I've got to go take a rest because they can tend to be too detailed. Remember that little list I showed you? They will cross over into the visual as if you don't trust the artist. You got to trust me. I sort of know what I'm doing. Well, at least most of the time. Yes, yes. But we have to be able to speak that language, collaborate, talk together. Know that, yeah, you can't be there to hold my hand on every little drawing or every little detail, but trust me to be able to get it right. Trust that I understand. I have to present who is doing what. Why are they doing it is what I don't know. And I can't cross over into that. So again, when I get a script that's extremely wordy, where they're describing every little thing, because remember, they're just supposed to be describing like a snapshot, as if you took a Polaroid of a scene. That's all you get. The tape a little higher. If they're describing, oh, two or three actions within the panel, And it's not meant as a gag or something that's supposed to continue. When you're literally trying to tell me he got out of the car, ran into the building, turned on the light switch, and then jumped out of the window in full costume, and that's in the first panel, that is never going to work. So I get writers that are like really good at just getting right to it, describing what I need to know. Because remember, I have to be able to visualize this story. And then I get writers who are like, what? I can't see a thing. I'm too busy trying to figure out what angle they want me to draw a certain panel at. And now, so how do I make my characters look less stiff? Well, number one, you have to drop the shoulders. And someone showed me a trick a long time ago. Draw with your pencil on the side when you're sketching. It's going to force you to not make your character stiff, because as you grip your pencil, you're not allowing your hand to relax into it. And you've got to relax. Believe me, you got to relax. So I know time is flying, so I've got to pick some speed up here. Yab wall. You know, another thing, when you're using these disposable tools, you have to use them as if you're holding a crow quill in your hand. Touch them lightly. Apply pressure. Push and pull the same way. Yeah, you're going to destroy a lot of them, but it's always the same technique. Therefore, you can keep a nice bouncy line. Have more questions? How did you start working for Marvel? Well, I started working for Marvel when they let the animals off the ark. I was the first one in line there, begging for a job. But it's a secret. I can't tell you exactly how I started working for Marvel. Actually, I came in with Marvel Knights, and I got to do, as I said, Black Panther with Mark Texeira. It's one of the first books that I got to do. And that was a nightmare of pencil, ink, and wash. Oh, goodness. You know, when you're a new artist and you have to like hit all three disciplines at once, that is what you call a trial by fire. And boy, did I have a lot of those. Now, do you see this rib cage I've just drawn here? Do you notice how the external oblique, as I said, instead of going down like a V, because men are built like wedges, you're going up into the barrel of the chest. Got another question? Who is my favorite Marvel villain? Mm, mm. Can I make a wry joke? I think it's Reed Richards. He's done a lot of stuff that I question. I question his sanity. I love drawing him too. He's so much fun. But let's see. Villain. I don't know. I'm still mad at Thanos a little bit there. Most people enjoy Loki, but I don't enjoy Loki. I like my villains to be reckoned with. When you don't reckon with a villain, it kind of makes me feel like, why are you getting away with all this crime? So, Doctor Doom probably, and he's so underutilized. It's like, why? Why can't I have more Doom? Another question. Do you use reference to pose your figures? And do you consider the correct perspective while drawing poses, or do you feel it out? Yes, I have to consider what perspective I'm going to draw in first. because that's kind of where it starts. I've got to kind of know what I'm doing. Sometimes it's difficult because it's not just about posing the character, finding the coolest pose for the character. To me, it's very much about having the character act. Is this character Namor? Is he acting like Namor? Or is this just a cool character on a page doing something safe, something that I feel safe drawing and not really pushing myself? I think as artists, we really worry about if what I'm doing if it looks wonky. Is it actually drawn well? Or does it look weird to your eye? It's like, am I doing it right? You have to be able to trust yourself and know that you're going to make mistakes, a whole lot of them. We make a lot of them. You think I draw these figures quite this fast? No, I take my time. And yet and still, I'm able to draw with a good amount of speed because you know what you're doing. Trust it once you know that math and you check yourself, meaning you flip your page over and take a look at it. Trust at that point that, yeah, I'm doing it right or close enough this time, and I'll do better next time. It's like, is there a revision process? Do you submit pages and the writers say, no, that's not what we were looking for, more like this type of thing? No, we have to draw fast. Oh my God, you see how fast comic books come out? No one has time like that. You just don't have time like that. You wish you had more time like that. If they had a lot of time on a book, oh, you'd take forever. You would draw such wonderful things. You'd be able to sit there making a million corrections and doing all these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful things. But because of those things I wrote down, it's a visual medium. You know your part. The writer knows their part. You're going to find that there's a very few revisions to be made. Normally, there's not a lot of revisions at all to be made because everybody is speaking the same language, performing the same function to the best of their ability. That's why they hired you. That's why you're an artist. I'm going to use a sheet of paper so that I don't cross here. What made me want to draw? This is something I had inside of me my entire life. And it's something I had to hide because of it being a little dangerous for a girl to be drawing these masculine, hyper masculine heroes when the whole world is telling you you're not supposed to be drawing that. Have any of you had a secret you had to hide? Do you know what it's like to have to go to school and see your artwork torn up and on the floor? That is why I created my pen name, Ariat Storm, which is coincidentally, I use that for the name of my little tiny comic book company and my website and how you find me on social media, Ariat Storm. Because the moment I created that name, that pen name for myself, my artwork stopped being torn up. It's because they couldn't figure out if I was a boy or girl anymore. They assumed I was a boy and they left my work alone. Imagine that being your reality. And I know there are many out there who can relate to what I've just said. And then you're going to take this huge chance and you're going to move to a strange city all by yourself because you know that this is what you're meant to do with your life. You don't know how you're going to do it. And you've been told in your totally small town that they know girls don't do this work. But you know you're going to do this. You're either crazy or determined. I was extremely determined and even more lucky to have been able to put together. I know people, the next question is coming up. Yes, you have to put together sequential art pages, 3 to 5, fighting, splash page, talking. Prove that you can tell that visual story. Tailor it to whatever particular comic book company you're showing. Meaning, if you don't take Barbie to Marvel, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Draw their characters. Show them that you can. Show them with your style, but within their parameters. Because, as you know, there's the Marvel way, there's the other folks' way. Be flexible, be willing to learn. And don't fall so deeply in love that you are unable to make changes to your own work. Because, yes, even though there aren't that many revisions to be made, there are times that you'll have to make them. And understand that this is not your character. You don't own this character. You were hired to complete a task. And I think many people forget that comic books is a job. Just like your mom, dad, your 9 to 5 job, this is my 9 to 5 job. Only I get to draw, characters for my bread. But all the same, I've got to draw them. I can't be so hung up in it that I cannot do as I'm told. People ask about, the creative love for the character. Yeah, I love the characters. Oh, don't doubt it. Ask yourself, if tomorrow there were no comic book companies and there were no other people in the world, would you still draw? I certainly would. I would draw in the cave walls if I had to, if it went back that far. But because it's a job, because this is how I feed my family, I have to be understanding of that. You have to be understanding of that if that's what you want for your future. And as such, learn the language, speak it well. Ooh, now we're getting to the part where we're just going to fly across here with some brush. What made me want to draw? I answered that. What have you been? It's okay. What have you been able to change? Have you been able to change the costume style of a hero or villain? Oh my goodness, so very much. Yes. Listen, listen. I love Black Panther. I love Black Panther so much. But his guard, his personal guard, over the years, I have watched them go from I hate to use the word like ladies of the night almost to wearing Conan style bikinis. Why are you wearing that? And you were the captain of the guard. So when I got to draw the world of Wakanda, the first thing I did was put my beloved ladies in some functional clothing. As cute as high heels are, you cannot run in those things. If a monster was chasing you, you're kicking those things off. They're gone. There are no more high heels. You're not going to run around wearing heels. You're just not. It's not happening. Again, functional clothing. I find that for a lot of the lady heroes, again, notice I'm avoiding using that word female, trying not to identify people by their scientific terminology. That's another thing we have to fight. We have to start seeing each other as we are, drawing people. And don't be afraid to draw all types of people. I know that became a sort of a question. Is it appropriate to draw this or that? If you're an artist, you have to draw everybody. You cannot have people you don't want to draw or be afraid to draw. Am I going to represent it well? You'll be representing it well if you've learned to tell the story, if you've presented this story, if you've done it to the best of your ability. You know you just didn't draw Mary Jane with a wig on and call that the lady, you called her Moon Girl. That's not going to work. You took the time to learn about the 3 types of human skulls. You've made the changes to that basic human skull that we've all been cursed with learning first. And of course, again, you've learned that art of storytelling. And he's got these little wingies on his feet that I'm going to draw very, very loosely. Now, what was it? Why? Someone asked, why am I such a queen? A queen of what? I'm a journeyman. Oh my goodness. I don't even know how people honestly found out I existed. It's so weird. I just want to, when you just want to draw, you just want to draw. That's it. I want to see other people draw. I want to see people draw what they want to draw, how they want to draw it, and not be questioned if you can draw it. That's a war that I fought. And today I go to comic book conventions, when we were allowed to, and I don't see people looking at the portfolio of women the way they looked at my portfolio. I was the first woman of color to draw for Marvel. And when you're showing your portfolio, the first thing people will say is, you don't draw like a girl. It wasn't even the color issue. They couldn't get past the feminine issue at that time. So to see that that's no longer an issue, I'm hoping that it's not an issue anymore. I'm hoping that when you walk into the room and you are showing your work, that people are seeing your work. They're seeing the worth of you on the page, what you've brought to this art, what you've brought to our wonderful, wonderful comic book community. And now we must go and draw the little toes. Oh, I wish I could slow you down to show you the little technique for toes. I could do it a little bit. So we know the toe, the big toe is the biggest, right? And toes are mean to draw, aren't they? I tend to draw them, as you see, it has those little dividing ridges here. Sort of like the hands. And someone just asked what we're doing right now. Did you have such difficulty with feet and hands? Ah, I never really thought about it. I think my first go with comics was such a trial, just a running, that I still felt like I haven't caught my breath yet. But no, it didn't feel like that much of a fight because I like drawing those kind of little details. What I worry about is the bias that I bring to the page and that I'm overcoming it every single time. And I think that's about as all I'm going to put down with that. The question is, was it a lot of pressure to draw comics under a time restraint when you first started working there? No, actually it wasn't. I didn't feel it like that because it was in parts. It wasn't all at once. And at that time, we could actually go into Marvel and work. So you're there, you're in the bullpen, you're surrounded by a lot of people, camaraderie, people are talking. It's wonderful. It feels great. And you don't notice the time flies. Oh yeah, you're working hard. I mean, I've gotten calls on Christmas. I don't think I've had a holiday in all these years. This is what you do, but you're happy to do it. I know I'm going to make my hand shake as I try to draw these loops. Yes, look, drawing loops. And I'm sorry, once again, I spin my page to death. I know it. But again, it keeps you from getting ink all over it. Now I'm almost done with my line art, and I'm trying not to run over time because it's so short. And hopefully I'm not taking it out of frame too much as I turn. It's like I can hear the voices, yes, you are. line. And I have another question. Does it become muscle memory to the point where you can draw without second guessing yourself? No. Don't you wish? Again, fall back to the math. The math is what becomes memory to you. The math is what you will check. And yeah, in an extent, you can say, yeah, it's a little bit of muscle memory. Just a little bit, though. Meaning, if I have to draw a body very, very quickly, yeah, you can whip around it. You know it. Because you learn to trust yourself. You've drawn it hundreds of times. For me, I think a lot of inking things become like that, become memory. You just know how it should feel when that brush touches the page. You're not afraid to have it touch the page. And while that does take time to develop a hand like that, you'll go ahead. And when you feel it, when you're going, okay, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to go around here. Yeah, that part becomes sort of like a memory. When you're putting shadows on faces, once you've learned that you've discovered your technique with that little bruised circle, you'll find that, oh my goodness, I like doing that, but you'll get in the habit of, okay, I can do it just like this, and I like doing it like this. So when you see another shading technique, you're like, oh, how do I do that? That becomes memory to you. I know it must be so difficult watching a traditional artist because they're like, why does she keep turning the page? So I don't touch this ink. As you can see, it's very, very wet. And, while there are a lot of happy accidents, you've heard that word, happy accidents. Yeah, I don't want to have to sit there and blot out a big, big spot. But that's one thing that, working in the computer has done. It's made it so that if I have to make a correction, I usually do it in the computer. That's why I tell people I don't mind going straight to inks like this, because any mistakes that I do make, I can fix in the computer. How do you practice realistic poses? By learning to draw that little figure I showed you until you can do it kind of easily. Whereas again, it's not exactly memory, but it's math, and you can learn that math. And I would say, let me give you a little word about copying from pictures. That's fine. You can take a look at a picture, but do not put it on your desk and lift it, because you'll be collecting something called the focal length, the millimeter of the camera lens used to shoot that image. So have you ever seen art that sometimes looks a little stretched, looks a little, they call it wonky, because it's difficult to explain exactly what's wrong with this piece of art that you're looking at. You don't know why it looks weird to your eye, you just know that it does, because you're picking up what the camera sees. You're picking up this focal length and you don't know how to make the correction for it. So you definitely don't want to sit there and go, oh, I'm going to trace this thing. No, please, 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 please try not to trace it. Look at it, learn from it, study it. But whatever you do, don't lift it. And the question was, did I go to art school? Oh, there's another story. You've all got me telling stories today. I came to New York intent on going to art school. It's what I wanted to do. I wanted to, I figured that's how this works. You go to art school. The environment was extremely toxic, as you could imagine. It was, again, more of what I faced in Florida, where you cannot be accepted. I was mansplained to why a company, look at that, I've got ink going. Why a company like Marvel would not hire or invest in a woman, because I could not be relied upon as I go in life to start my family in this. Yes, this is what my classmates told me while they were admiring my dress. Because at that time, you're young and firm. Things are great then. But it was also extremely difficult. I can't tell you how difficult it was until I could not continue. I just couldn't. It was too much for me. So I am a self taught artist. I didn't last more than a few weeks in school. Faster, faster. Someone asked, what inspires you and your work? A good story. Again, I've got like a checklist of characters that I want to draw, that I would love to draw, to say I've drawn, before I start writing my memoirs. And to those characters, this is one of them. I would love a run on this character. Why? Because it started when I was a kid. This was one of those that you see on TV when you're remember you had a cartoon. When you're a kid and you just hit this country again after you haven't been here in a little while. There's my parents. My father is from Curacao. My mother's from Honduras. And it becomes, it helps you, get back into speaking English. It's a fantasy, an escape, because it's difficult plopping into a whole new culture in a whole entire new place. Florida, where I landed when I got back to America, it was that you might as well put me on Mars. I couldn't understand the accents. It really shell shocked me to feel and hear that, and just the different culture, and realizing you've instantly become the other. You're the one that's different. And they'll point out every little bit of difference there is to you. How do you fit back in? You need to feel normal. You need to feel grounded. And I think a lot of other people can understand what I say with that, is that these characters, they speak to you. They speak to you of things we understand as part of our human nature, our journey, the hero's journey, but also integrity, loyalty, sacrifice, these big ideals, things we want to live up to, things we want to share with one another. That's what spoke to me. And I was very, very happy to have it, you know, get it, watch it on TV, feel so good. Of course, you want to be a part of this. You want to be able to say, for myself, to go, I came here and I added something. It was small, it wasn't much. But at the end, I added to this legacy of comics that I love so much. You see, he needs some drawing time because, ooh, I've got to go in and hit up all the little details. And he's like, oh, he's so super wet. If you have questions, any last minute questions, now's the time. as I take to the cleanup work and the fine little, just the little details that are left. I don't want to touch his skin yet because that's another layer of drying. And usually, again, blocking in the big black shapes, going in, putting some textures down. These are things that I could do right now while it's a little wet like this. I could also go in and gray wash it if I was so inclined. Because the black is still wet, I could work with it and use it to create different gradients. I hope it's still in frame. What I'm doing now is hatching, putting little hatch marks on it to help define these black areas. Smooth them out a little bit, give them a little texture. His armor seems very organic to me. So I'm actually using something with a slightly damaged nib so I could get a little bit more of a brushy texture to it. Little feathered line. I don't know if you could see the little scribbles I'm doing at the top. I keep cleaning off the nib. This nib is felt and it's picking up the ink. So while it's a little damaged, it's a little frayed, and that's the look I want. I don't want it to get this ink on there because it will make it skip. It won't be a smooth line anymore. So we've got his little facial features in, but notice they're not defined yet. Again, it's hard to go back and touch him while he's this wet. It's a lot of black trying to dry very, very quickly here. And also, take a look at the light source I've chosen. So he's pointing up, the light is coming down. You can tell by the highlights, the parts that I've left in highlight. As one side dries, I'm going to flip it over. I hope it's still in frame. Let me know. Now you can really see that bushy nib. It's not the same as it was, and believe me, just going through the felt stuff, if you're using that, I break these up. Oh my God, I go through so many of them, it's not even funny. And so I can, take out the good old crow quill. I know it's evil. I know that's an instrument of torture. I'm very sorry they haven't come up with something truly, truly better. But these disposables can get expensive. Oh, I touched it. I'm going to have to clean you up. Now, Something a little odd. He's got a little necklace thing flowing. Little shells and stuff. I have a very thin blue line underneath. Remember before when I put the tiny acrylic dots on at the end? So I could have drawn through these shapes, left them more open than this, and just drawn the necklace on first. Is this a necklace? But instead, at the end, I'm going to pick it up with acrylic. What is the key to drawing metallic surfaces like armor and weapons? Highlights. You've got to pick a light source. Remember, it's like basic. Someone asked me about perspective before. Yeah, you've got to pick the perspective you're going to draw it. Bird's eye, meaning overhead, head on, or worm's eye. Pick your level first. And then you've got to decide on your light source. And from there, you could go in and have a ton of fun. I know. You see all the stuff, how messy. I know. I see people doing these. Their work is so beautiful and clean. Look, I like to slap the ink on the page. I like to feel it. I like to let it flow, let it go. So I've got to keep turning it because I need to have as dry a surface to work on. And all of these little things that are all around, I'll clear them off in the computer. That's what Photoshop is for, at least for me. I cannot really draw on the slick surface. It doesn't feel like paper. And again, these brushes, they don't feel the same to me. I've got to be able to touch it. I've got to be able to hit it with a pen. Just get in there and just make mistakes. Draw a million lines. Erase a million more. He's also got a little one across his neck, right? I haven't decided on the way that one will flow. So let me take a look here. It could do like that. Again, non-photo blue is my friend. Okay. So he's getting to where I want to finish his face, but I'm also a little afraid to touch him because he's wet. And forgive me, I know I'm running over time. I thought I had it all planned out, but there's just so much I wanted to say. And of course, to show you. Who knows if I'll ever get another chance, you see? I have another cat. Thank you. Someone says, keep going, get it done. With those words of encouragement, or like, oh my God, she's not done yet. So now we have to make sure he not only looks like Namor, but he's acting like Namor. Is he giving you that look like you little people? What were the most inspiring comics you read growing up? Conan. I love Conan so much. I had so many copies of Conan. You just can't understand. Seeing that work, I loved it so much. And you know, I like the X-Men. I'm going to say something terrible. Before Jim Lee came in, that's when I was reading the X-Men, and then I couldn't afford it because mowing lawns was expensive. You had to get the gas, you had to do all that stuff, and believe me, walking that 2 miles to 7-Eleven past the alligator that was trying to get you, yeah, that's Florida for you, baby. All that was happening at once. And I couldn't afford it. Once comic books went up, you know, that was something, that's another thing. Coming from my background, It's difficult to make a 90-year-old woman understand why you need to go and get comic books. It's really difficult. They're not into that. They don't really understand why you want to go and buy more of these little pachinko books. Why you can't be happy with just the one you got the other day. Why'd you need to go have like 4 or 5 more? So there was no begging for the extra money. But I liked it when my X-Men, they had these really, really zany adventures. Chris Claremont writing when it felt like there was danger before Pokeball time. Now they die and they're like, they'll return, they'll come back, don't worry. Then why are you getting upset? They'll be back in the next arc. I like stakes. I feel there's no more stakes. I think storytelling has become sort of like, how do you put this? It's sort of like art in its way. Like we're so scared to make a mistake. We want everything to look so very perfect that we don't want to go in with heavy blacks. We don't want to go in. We want to leave it in that very, very white plain form that you saw as I started doing this, because it's safe. And to me, comics have become safe. They don't kill characters anymore. You don't see, you don't feel the stakes anymore because the story no longer feels permanent. Feels like any minute now they're going to get up and they're going to be just fine. So I need my high stakes. Hear that, Marvel? Give me back my high stakes. Give me back my danger. Let me have my feeling that, oh, they might not survive this next time. As much as a shock the whole Thanos snap was, and oh, believe me, when he snapped his fingers and won that, I'm like, what? Weren't you sitting there in the movie theater going, what just happened? Who did this? Oh no, turn this back on, right? But for a minute, it felt like something was at stake. Storytelling to me has become safe. Nothing is at stake like that anymore. Dear friends, we're drawing at the close of our time together. Ooh, look, I missed. I think sometimes I see that he has fishnets on the other side, and then sometime I saw that he did not. Oh, is that just artist inconsistency, or is that the costume? I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to err on the side of caution. I'm clearing off my brush of gray for a minute so I could get the lightest gray tone back. I love these little brush beds because it lets me do gray washes, and also it's so wet that with a few twists it cleans itself off. So on the dry parts, notice I'm not pulling ink, but on the wet parts, notice I'm able to go in and spread that black around in a sort of a gradient. And when I want a little bit more, like on the little wings here, I touch the black and pull the gradient through. I think he's almost dry at the top. That'd be wonderful. So I'm activating my acrylic pen again so that I could drop some white. I know people, you could also use whiteout to do this, but they actually have acrylic paint within pens, and acrylic is great because it stands up on top of watercolor very well. So unlike using just like whiteout, and I know they have the, I can't even remember what it's called, the old-fashioned way of doing it with this kind of very, very, very thick paint that sometimes works and sometimes it's just evil. I like acrylic pens just for the precision, to be able to touch just that one spot. And now to pick up the last of the blacks. And finally, let everybody go. Again, I would love to thank Marvel for having me on here to do this demonstration for you. In the final, I will clean it up so much more. Probably now, also here, I would probably go in and use the smudges as sort of background. He's underwater. Got the hair going because, you know, want flow. And again, he's looking at us. I love the predator stare. I'm just going to pop out a few more of these little lines off to the side in black. And I promise you, I'm going to stop spinning this paper. Exactly a handful more lines and I'm done. And as you can see, for me, art is a messy process. It is everywhere. I get ink everywhere, but again, that's what Photoshop's for, to help me clean this up. I like to play in ink. I like to really get in there, make it look organic, make it feel organic, play with the shadows. I think he's dry enough, but I'm not going to take the chance. As you can see, this is an undamaged nib. It's a lot wetter, smoother, easier to work with. Promise you, this is the last turn in the page. And what I'm doing is just putting on the other side of the fishnets. The very, very, very small details. I would go in and cross hatch a little bit more. But we're just seeking demo, not absolute perfection. Okay, I've got to stop tickling it now. That's it. So again, thank you so much for bearing with me as I finished off my beloved Namor. Using my acrylic paint to get rid of some of the little smudges. Again, not the neatest journey for me, but boy, do I enjoy the ride. Thank you so much, and until next time, make yours marvel.